Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Pennsylvania Berwind. This is episode number 23. And today, guys, oh man, I don't even know where to start with the commentary for this video. I guess let me just preface this by saying that during the build process, and right up until I looked at the time lapse, I hated what I was doing. I hated this. And that's not to say that you should jump ahead and skip this video or don't watch it or something like that, because I think there's a lesson to be learned here, and I think I'm gonna extrapolate what I can from what I learned in this episode, and I think you guys will find some valuable information in it. So stick around, don't skip this just yet. So again, let me preface this next bit by saying this video is gonna be kind of divided in two parts. The first part is gonna be me fixing a lot of the track work here in Allegheny. By the way, we're in Allegheny Yard, finally. I skipped over a whole bunch of stuff that we're gonna revisit sometime in the future, but anyway, we're in Allegheny Yard, and the first half of this video is gonna be me fixing up a whole bunch of this track because the turnouts were just way too sharp. The tracks were all wrong, everything was all wrong, so I had to come back and fix all this. The second part of this video is basically everything else, and I think that that is really where I went wrong, and really what I went wrong with is, I think, ambition. I was overly ambitious with this build, and it lacked focus. It was overly ambitious, not enough focus. And I guess I'm gonna break this down in this sort of way. My intention to get to this point was I wanted to just do Allegheny. I was like, all right, we're gonna get to Allegheny Yard, I'm gonna fix the track, and then I'm gonna build the city, and it's gonna be awesome. I can handle this. I couldn't handle it. It was too big. It was too ambitious of a build. And that's because it's a whole yard, for one, and then a whole city. You can't just jump in and do that. And I think that that's something that a lot of you guys tend to do in your builds. And I'm not pointing fingers or anything like that. I'm just saying, from experience, from what you guys message me about, sometimes I get emails from you guys or tweets or Snapchats, etc., and you guys are always saying, sending me screenshots, and you're like, how does this look? How does this look? I don't, it doesn't have details like your videos do and your builds do. And I think that that's because a lot of times what we do is we think we're gonna go big. We're gonna build this whole city, we're gonna build this whole yard, and we're not happy with it because there's no details in it. You just lay out a whole bunch of stuff on a grid and you're just like, okay, well, this is it. I just spent 4.5, 5 hours, maybe your entire Saturday or Sunday doing this build, and you really didn't get any details done. You just kind of laid it all out. And that's kind of what I did here. I ended up just laying out lots of stuff and not getting a lot of detail work done. And if you've been following me for a while now, if you've been following the Pennsylvania Berwind or any of my other video series, you know that my typical build style usually goes something like pick a thing, a focus. So last episode was an apple orchard. Before that was the team track, and then before that was the grain elevators, and before that was a gravel, whatever. So I would pick an element, a layout design element, as Model Railroader refers to it. I forgot who actually coined that term. But a layout design element. I'd pick a design element and focus in on that, and specifically think about what are the elements that make up that thing that I'm working on. What tracks are there? What details do I need to include? What kind of vehicles? What kind of trees? Is the track overgrown? How much traffic is in here? So on and so forth, where the roads go, and I just will focus right on that and do nothing else but that one specific industry or whatever it is that I'm focusing on. And then I radiate out of that and kind of connect it to other things, the rest of the build, via maybe some farmlands or a neighborhood or something like that. So that's typically my build style. In this build, I don't know why, I think I'm just getting impatient. I think that is probably the word to use here. I got impatient and I wanted to cover as much ground as I possibly could. And that just led to a disaster because it is completely opposite of the way that I normally work. And you'll see that as this video progresses, it goes from broad to more detailed. So by the end of this, I'm adding some details here and there. This is not even anywhere near complete by the end of it. In terms of details, I get most of the city roughed in, I guess you could say, and some of the surroundings roughed in for the most part. And I guess I'm kind of happy with it. I don't know. We'll take a look at it in live mode and we'll discuss. But by now, it's really the lack of details, and it's the fact that I went way too big in the beginning, and I just didn't know where my focus was. Everything that I went to, every specific build or area that I went to go build, I'm like, okay, what is this? And why does it belong here? And then I jump way down the other side a mile away and be like, okay, what is this? Why does this belong here? I didn't take enough time to focus on anything in particular. So my ambition was way too big and my focus was way too small, way too limited. So I guess that is my lesson to you guys. When you're building, try to stay more focused on the small things and then radiate out from there. The focus on the layout design elements, whatever that might be. Generally, it's an industry, or it could be something, a nice bridge. Like a couple episodes back, I did the waterway. I forgot what I called that episode. The floodplains, I think that's what it was. So all I did there was just kind of detail a swamp and some bridges and stuff like that. So that was the design element there. Here, the design element could have been the facility, the yard facility itself, or the city itself, or each industry that is in the area. Each one of these things could be a design element. I mean, as a whole, Allegheny is one big layout design element. It is a destination on the Pennsylvania and Berwind. So you could refer to it as a layout design element, because as a whole, that's what it is. But really, it's comprised of a whole bunch of smaller design elements that really I should have attacked smaller and one at a time rather than trying to get so much done. And you're going to see in these next couple of cuts, there's going to be big jumps in the amount of stuff that gets done between them. So I guess now I could turn my focus a little bit more towards what is actually happening on the screen rather than just delivering a crazy monologue. So at this point, I've laid out the roads, I've got my track fixed, so this is where we transition into the pretty much everything else part. I've got my roads laid out sort of in a grid fashion. I wasn't going for anything fancy here. This isn't City Skylines. I didn't care if it was a grid. We're focusing more on the track work and stuff like that. So I lay out a grid and kind of decide like what kind of buildings I want to have here. So I'm thinking, all right, this is the downtown area. It's right by the railroad tracks. There's going to be a lot of industry. We're right in between. Allegheny Yard is right adjacent to a big steel mill. So right in between is obviously, should be at the very least, a lot of industry, a lot of factories, transportation hubs, stuff like that. So I'm throwing a lot of old industry in there, a lot of new industry, and trying to mix and match. And then as we move down to our right currently, what we're looking at, we get a little bit more into like offices and like low commercial space and residential like buildings and stuff like that, but we're not there quite yet. So here I'm trying to get out some of these buildings. These are some of the new jointed rail buildings that we've got. I'm trying to lay them out a little bit here and there. There's going to be a huge jump in a minute, and a whole bunch of these buildings are going to be laid out, and then there's going to be another huge jump. The thing that really was driving me nuts was that I felt like I wasn't making any progress. And again, that goes back to the fact that I was going way too big. So I cut the camera quite a bit in here, and there's huge progress jumps because I'd be working on something for a little while and I'd be like, this isn't getting anywhere. Nobody is gonna care for this video because I'm just rotating buildings over and over and over again. So I cut that kind of stuff out, and essentially what I did in between the cut was copy and paste it. I laid out a whole bunch of buildings in some formats that look decent, and then I copy and pasted each block. And of course, because the copy and paste has to snap to the grid, I had to spend a lot of time relining up everything. And I'm not gonna go into too much detail on these side streets, at least right now. So there's a big jump right there. I put all the downtown buildings. So that was probably a good hour and a half of off-camera time of me just doing all kinds of nonsense. So yeah, I'm not gonna go too detailed down some of these streets and put like sidewalks down and power lines and people. I'm gonna take it to a point because this is an area where there's a lot of track and there's gonna be a lot of freight cars, and that is already you're gonna take a hit on your frame rate just with that alone. So if I go too crazy on the details in the background stuff, it's just gonna be a slideshow. So I've got that constantly in the back of my mind, that I can only take the details to a point because this is kind of a deep scene and there's a lot going on. So as we're progressing through here, you see me just jumping around. I got some of these buildings laid out. I was like, all right, let me go put a road down. And now I'm like, all right, maybe I'll put a parking lot over here. And I do sort of change things here and there. Some stuff goes through a few iterations, but The thing that I was really struggling with is just laying out this city, and honestly, this is one reason why I haven't done a City Skylines video series, is because I'm not really that great with like city planning. It's not something that comes very natural to me. I don't know why. I think it's probably because of the scope of it. It's just too broad, and I think about it in these big, chunks. I'm like, oh, this all has to be this one thing. So city planning is kind of a weak spot for me. Maybe I can work on it and get better about it, but I think that's another reason why I struggled with this, is that I just didn't know what to put where and how to fill up some of these spaces. And again, where these two buildings are on the right by these trees here off to the side of the yard, that is eventually going to get detailed. It doesn't end up getting detailed in this episode. Shocker. But it will be detailed in the future. I'll put some trucks down and some streetlights and stuff like that to detail it. And then we're going to have to go from there. I don't know what other details I can add around here. I'm still trying to decide what to do on this side of the whole city here. So we'll have to, let me know what you guys think in the comments, what else I should put. I'm kind of thinking as we go out of the city, we'll transition into some suburbs, sort of slightly, and then just into forest, which is kind of what I'm doing here. I was like, again, I picked this up again, and I was like, all right, I need to fill up some ground. I got to cover some ground, man. So I was like, all right, let me put some trees down. I know I'm going to put some trees here. Maybe that'll make me feel like I made some progress. And I felt like every time I started to make some sort of like quote unquote progress, like, covering ground like I'm doing right now, I'd look at it and be like, this sucks. This doesn't look right. And it's really, like, just goes back to my original point. It's because I was just going way too broad. And now at this point, I'm starting to bring my focus in a little bit. I'm like, all right, I realize what I was doing wrong. I'm like, I need to focus in on certain areas, otherwise this video is gonna be really, really garbage. And in fact, by this point in the video, I was ready to completely cut the time lapse and just do a regular overview of the video. And I was very close to doing that, I'll tell you right now. But it was a last minute decision that I was just like, no, I think I learned a lesson here, and I think it's worth sharing with you guys. So anyway, now just doing some detail stuff around here. I'm using some of these road striping tools that were made by Felix G of Jointed Rail, which is amazing. I've been waiting forever for road stripings like this. I was using the airport markings in previous episodes and previous builds, and now we've got these really nice road markings. There's even a dotted line and a double yellow line, and man, they just look so good. I'm excited to be using them because you can put roads down now, like I did here, without actually having to lay a road, and that is just genius. And if you want to add traffic, you can add invisible road traffic to it. So it's just an awesome way to be able to customize your roads and your parking lots as well, which I did here with the white striping. Again, I don't know if that's too prototypical. I've never been to a huge rail yard like this, so I wanted there to be like some service roads and some parking areas and stuff like that for the conductors and engineers and other track workers and stuff like that. So I was thinking, how do you direct traffic? Usually through parking lots and stuff like that, usually some kind of pavement markings. So now we've jumped off of that, and I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do next. Decide I'm going to add some details here and there, some ties and some rails, which, helps, but it's not super perfect. And then I decided to put a parking lot in here to fill up some space, which I actually, off camera, I added a building or one or two buildings to fill up this space, because it just felt like, why would this be just one big stupid parking lot? So I did end up putting a building in there to fill up a little bit of space, and I'll have to tweak it a little bit more. This is some stuff that I'm probably gonna have to like derp around with off camera. Doesn't make for good video stuff. So by the way, like when I do videos for you guys, I spend a lot of time trying to decide what build I'm gonna do, and then in my head making a list of, how I'm gonna attack this build, and, just pre-plan it to the point so that way when I go to make the video, I'm not like derping around trying to find assets too much, or, trying to figure out what to do, which is really what this whole episode was. But, I try to get it planned enough so it's very cohesive and it flows much more easily, because that's better to watch than somebody who's just gonna sit there and search through the asset list a million times or put buildings down and then delete them. So I try to have like some degree of confidence when I do my videos. And this one, I really just didn't have that. I'm still kind of feeling a little funky about it, but it is what it is. nothing I can do about it. This video is gonna come out anyway, and you guys can let me know what you think about it. I mean, I did put some engines down afterwards, and it made me feel a little bit better about it, because once you add in sort of like the actors, so to speak, which are your engines and your trains, your freight cars and everything, that kind of brings it to life a little bit more. So once I added some freight cars and stuff, I felt a little bit better about it. But I think that's gonna do it for my monologue for now. You're gonna listen to a song for a minute. I don't know, I haven't picked anything out yet. So whatever happens in the next 2 or 3 minutes is totally up in the air. And I'll see you guys again in the live mode in just a moment. All right, so last couple things to go over. Again, with some trains, this actually doesn't look so bad. It needs some more details for sure, but man, it is pretty cool. Hi, voice. It is really cool to see the P&B engines in like a downtown city sort of area. So I guess I'm not hating it too much. I mean, there's still so much work that needs to happen here. Like I'm not even exaggerating that idea, but this does look really cool with these P&B engines in a big downtown scene after seeing them in the countryside for so long. So I guess that kind of re-energizes me a little tiny bit. So I'm kind of stoked about that. So first things first, we had a donation, William Lawrence. So thank you for the donation. We got Lawrence Hardware Supplies right here along the trackside. And this is the building that I added to break up this parking lot. I might add a few more. Definitely some cars are gonna be parked in here as well, and trucks and stuff like that. But that was one thing that I did add. Trying to think of what stuff did I want to go over. I guess I'll show you what the road stripings are here. These are the FGRM white single solid 10-inch beta. So I think that some of these, don't quote me on this, I think some of these were part of the Tidewater pack. Some of them might not have been included in the Tidewater pack. Some of them, I don't know. It could have been a mix. I'm not too sure which ones made it and which ones didn't. So if they're there, that's where you can find them. Otherwise, some of them might be unreleased. But super useful using them as road markings along here. One thing that I'm a little skeptical about is this. I kind of wanted to have a like a service road here, so like if there's an engine tied down over here, they could send a truck down to pick up the crew, and then also have like an exit here to get out of this yard. But I'm thinking maybe I need to make it into a dirt road or something like that. This just looks, it looks more like an airport runway or something like that. So I need to dirty it up, I think, and just kind of end it down here. I'm also not too sure about these trees here. They kind of work because we're sort of half in the countryside, half in the city. So I'm not really too sure how I feel about it. I don't know. Lots of stuff needs to happen here. Again, some of these buildings, I did it mostly off camera, so you didn't see it, but a lot of them, they're just plopped down, and there's a lot of negative space in between. Lots of stuff that I need to figure out what to do with, and I really don't want to have to figure out that kind of stuff. Some of these buildings I did stack, so this one back here is actually two buildings, one on top of the other. And I did adjust the heights on some of them to add some dimensions so that it wasn't, because they're all like the same height. So I wanted to have some sort of dimensions so that some are bigger than others, some are, you know, short and hiding in there and you don't see them until you go up. Just to add some depth to it. I guess plans going forward, I was hoping to get more of this actually done this episode, but at least it's beginning to get laid out. I need to figure out exactly what I'm going to do on the whole left-hand side over here, which I think is going to be more like suburbs, maybe houses and neighborhoods and stuff like that. Nothing complex like this. So a little bit more simple. Down this way, maybe going more into the countryside again is kind of what I'm thinking. I'm not too sure. Another episode that's going to be a standalone episode is going to be this big Mama Bama thing here. So this is going to be a steel mill, or it is a steel mill. I need to figure out how I'm going to detail it. I really wanted to have this dominating steel mill thing back here. Just because the photos that I've seen of like Bethlehem Steel and stuff like that, these other steel mills, they're usually these enormously huge factories. And the assets that we have, at least the ones that I used at the time, there might be some newer ones out now, weren't quite as dominating as I'd hoped. So I'd actually layered them together, stacked a few on top of each other, and just made this huge dominating structure. So how accurate it is to reality, it's probably not at all. And you guys are probably gonna let me know. But that is a future plan, so that'll be the next build. Not the next build, but it'll be a future build. As well as covering the terrain over here. And then everything else, let me get in a little bit. This whole area going back towards Junietta, down this way is our team track and the apple orchard from last video. So this will be another build. Whether or not I do this on video, I haven't decided yet, because at this point my goal, and part of the reason why I probably really rushed into this and was a little too ambitious, was I'd like to get this bit done. And this is supposed to be part of phase 2. So that my plan was supposed to be to release phase 1 and then release phase 2. But now that I'm so close to phase 2 and having that done, I might just put the two together and release it all at once. And I'll lop off, you know, the end of the track down here so you guys don't get a bunch of blank baseboards. But I just feel like I'm so close, I might as well just finish these, get through a couple videos of this build, and then get both phase 1 and phase 2 out to you guys. I don't know, maybe I could just get phase 1 out now, and I just feel like because I'm close enough, I might as well just go for it, you know, get them both done. But anyway, I'm sure you guys are gonna let me know in the comments. If you have missed it, in case you missed it, I've started a new build that I will not be doing videos on. I might do like a featurette sort of video on it, but it is a live stream only build. And it is totally fictional, and some of you guys who have been watching it while I build it, while I stream it, have been saying that it kind of reminds you of the P&B in some ways, and I am using a lot of these downtown buildings and stuff like that, so that there's a little bit of a crossover now. But if you're interested, it's only going to be live stream build, live stream exclusive, so make sure you tune in, hit the bell icon so you get alerted when I do go live. Usually it's like Thursdays or Sundays, I'm not really on a schedule. But I think that's gonna do it for today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from my mistakes here. Don't be too ambitious. Try to be focused. But that's gonna do it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.